welcome to the Through It All podcast. I'm your host, Seth Wieler.
And your other host over here, Aiden Wolfe.
Thank you for joining us on this fine evening. Today we've got my aunt and uncle, Martin and Naomi Penner, joining us. Say hi.
Hello.
Hi.
You want to start by telling us a little bit about yourselves?
Well, I getting up on over the sixth decade in my age, so I have a little bit life experience. We live in Nuanlagi, and we have three children, and we have four grandchildren. So,
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Yeah.
well, then you gotta introduce yourself.
I know. I'm Naomi Penner, and we've been married for, it will be 40 years this summer.
Oh, wow.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And I don't know. Life is great. I work full time and enjoy gardening. And
Very cool.
Nice.
Start again.
go ahead. Can you press rewind? Because I don't know what to say.
It's all right. It's all right.
I don't normally talk about myself.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll start with a nice and easy question. How did you guys meet?
That is actually a very long story.
Yeah.
I went skiing with a friend of mine to Lake Louise, and all of a sudden he informed me this was way back in 1981.
81, yeah.
And we were going there, went during the week, and we're going to stay for the weekend. All of a sudden on Saturday morning, he said that he had to be back home in Saskatoon Saturday night because he had a date. And he said, you might as well get a date too. I said, ooh, I have nobody that I can think of right then. And he says, oh, she has a cousin. Phone her up. So I did. Phoned her that morning, I think. It was later in the morning. And asked if she wanted to go out that night. We're going to be home hopefully by 7, and we're going out for supper. And you said your mother had kept saying in the background, just say yes, just say yes.
Yes. Don't know why, but she did. She must have felt it was a good thing.
So that is where we met.
Yep.
It's kind of funny. I like to ask the question, were the first couple of times you went out awkward, or did you hit it off?
No, I hit it off.
I think we hit it off right away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
No, it was.
We had the same, I guess we were both from the same background. And I don't know. Yeah, we hit it off. I don't think it was awkward at all.
No.
Cool.
Nice, yeah. So how has your guys' relationship matured or changed over the years?
It's like everything else in life. As you go through the years, you go through things in your life that there's valleys and peaks, and the valleys make you tougher because you either are gonna be a binding force to get through them, and when there's the peaks, you enjoy them, and the good times override those that the tougher times. So, and there's been struggles in our life there, with people getting sick and passing on. And just after we got married, my dad passed away from cancer just before we got married.
Before we got married.
Yeah. And the next couple of years where my mom was sick throughout the whole time, so we had her stay at our place for a little while, and in 87 she passed away. And you had some tragedies. You had your grandparents had a car accident where your grandmother was killed in the car accident, and so there was some tougher times in our early married years, but that's what builds character, because you find ways, you lean on each other, you lean on the family, but you also lean on God to guide you through that, and that's where your strength matures, and you start seeing that each brings a different component to the marriage, and that makes it a whole. Not one person is everything. The two together, as it says, is you become one, and you work together to get through the things. So But you also enjoy the good times.
Oh yeah,
And there's
lots of good times.
been many good times. Children, grandchildren,
Grandchildren,
as they
nieces and nephews.
grow up. There's all kinds of things. There's graduations. There's you see 'em, weddings. The things that they achieve, and you are there joyous with them as well. So that is what makes it mature and change over time, and you appreciate what each other brings to the
And the
marriage.
longer you are together, the more your love grows.
The more you appreciate each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. You forget about the little things that sometimes are an irritant when you just got married. You got to get used to each other. So.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. How has having grandchildren changed your relationship in a way? Has it?
Grandchildren are awesome.
You can spoil them.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about being the
Disciplinarian.
Yeah. It's you can feed them sugar as long as you don't get caught.
You can have sleepovers that are up till 1:00 at night.
Yeah. And you can go do stuff that sometimes you wouldn't have done with your own children because you kind of think, well, we don't want to show them that this is, you take more chances maybe a little.
And you have more time.
You have more time.
As your children are growing up, you're in the middle of working and having a house. Like they're all so much younger. It's
busy
a
with daily life. Yeah.
For sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely understandable.
Yeah. So having a relationship is obviously, it's a very deep and personal thing and very serious, but you also have to be able to take a step back and have some more lighthearted moments. So what are some of the smaller things that you appreciate about each other?
Well, she's a pretty good cook,
Oh, that's for
but I do have to try all kinds of new recipes, which sometimes the answer I give might not be appreciative.
exactly. Then we just have to tweak it and make it a better recipe.
And we know the things that each other is fairly good at. She doesn't like sewing, so I will sometimes sew if I need to repair something.
Yep.
It's
I cut grass. You do laundry. Sometimes.
sometimes.
Yeah. I don't know.
It
The lighter things. You like coffee. I like coffee.
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 Good old coffee.
Good old coffee.
Coffee.
and you know what you like to do. Go out nature, go out enjoy fishing, go out camping, stuff like that.
Stuff like that.
You kind of have grown used to what you like together instead of looking at self and going and doing things where you are on your own. But it's more that you do things together, to try and do things together, and as a family.
As a family,
yeah.
that's huge. We're very big family people.
Yeah, definitely. So, transitioning into this time with obviously some pretty major changes would be having grandkids. So, how has this time of transitioning into this life of not just parents now, but grandparents, in the sense of how has having grandparents affected your guys' relationship, your relationship with your kids, and that kind of stuff?
Well, my grandparents, we were very open. Like, I would do lots with my grandparents when I was growing up. So I feel that I don't know, I picked up a lot of ideas from my grandparents. They were both totally different, and yet they each had qualities that I leaned in on, and sometimes will find myself doing. Like, for example, if I'm talking to my grandchildren, especially when they're little, instead of talking over them, I will sit down on the floor and talk level with them. I don't know,
Right.
just those little things.
I think your family did lot more things together.
Yeah. We went on trips too.
My dad was the second youngest in the family, so most of the uncles and aunts were so much older that the cousins were even way older, that I didn't have many that when we got together to play with. But on my mom's side, she was the oldest, so there was a lot of cousins there, but it was such a big family that you never did get together much as a complete family, but you would go visiting at each other's places, and there was always somebody to play with. So we got to know each other pretty good, but as you grow up and you live in different areas, you kind of do separate because you have different friends and get used to different group, I guess. And also depending on where you attend church, because that makes a difference too, where you have friends from there. So, but the big transitioning probably is over time is the things that changed. From back then, there was really no cell phones. When we got married, there was no cell phones.
No, there was
There
no
was
cell phones.
no computers. It came out in '85, the first disc computer. But those things have really changed, and I think it's changed the relationships and families because grandkids want to play a lot of video games, or instead of going outside and playing in the dirt like we did when I was young. So it's different. It's transitioned that way in society and culture. But I think you learn to adapt to it, and as long as you are using it for the good, it can benefit very much. And that's part of the transition where you need to both be on the same page and not let that overtake things in your life. So, because then you can start drifting again. It takes up too much of your time.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about the pandemic, the COVID thing that happened. It definitely had an effect on a lot of people, many different ways, including relationships. How do you feel it affected your relationship?
I don't think it really
I don't
affected
think
our
it affected
relationship
us.
at all.
No, because
It affected the relationship within families, within churches, within society, to the point where you're either very directed one way or the other way and could not see the middle. And that has, I think, even to this day, probably still some hurt feelings in between people. But between us and I think our children, there really hasn't been nothing.
No, there is. You cannot. We're glad that it's over.
Yep.
Obviously, but you cannot say that for us, it hasn't done anything.
Basically, we're on the same page, and
Yeah.
and not that you could be so hard on one way or the other way. We had to look at both ways and try and reason, and
Everyone had a reason for what they believed.
yeah,
Like it really made no difference.
and just leave it at everybody can have their own which choice they want. It's not, don't force your choice on others, but make a wise choice. Also, with spiritual input, and go with that and leave it in his hands.
Yeah, so you don't think, I'm not exactly sure how the lockdowns affected your jobs per se, but I assume you were stuck at home when you're not used to that.
I was stuck at home.
I went to work every
Yeah.
day.
You
It
had
didn't
no choice.
affect me that way. I mean, it affected you, the way you interacted with customers, the way that you went into stores. Some of the things just didn't make sense at all, but you just try to deal with it and don't let it get to you, and you'll be good.
I used it as an opportunity to get stuff done at home because you know that it has to has to end eventually. So I was at home. It was not.
You weren't
I wasn't
totally
totally
happy about
happy
it.
about that because of I work in a school, and so the school had to get shut down. The kids had to go home. So I felt compassion for those children that had to go home and could not, especially grade 12s that year. That
Yeah.
one,
Yeah.
they could not have a grad. Like that made me very sad. But it also life had to go on.
We were actually on a holiday in the States in February that year, and just you can hear on the news more and more, and we were just gonna come home right at the end of February, and kind of said, like, people are wearing masks,
Yeah, why are they
starting to wear
wearing
masks and stuff, and you wonder what's going on. And then we got to Vancouver, and there was lots of people
There
wearing
was
masks
lots,
in there.
and we were not even allowed in the airport.
No, they just herded us through
Underneath.
Yeah, then we couldn't interact with other people, and
No.
got back home to Saskatoon, and then at work we had a meeting, and I said to all of the managers in the meeting, I said, this is what they're doing in China is like, we don't understand that. That seems very harsh, but what if that happens to come here? And they all, that won't come. But sure enough, almost only 3 weeks later, everything's shut down.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember before the pandemic hit at school, it was always like this big old joke. And then next thing you know,
Here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we are.
Yeah. Went home for lunch. Everything was good. I got back. Pack up your locker. You're going home.
Yeah.
Did I do something wrong? No, everyone's doing it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it was the unknown about everything, like about the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think is what everybody put fear into a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of it was probably driven by the unknown because nobody knew how severe or how, and the main thing was, will the medical community be able to handle what might happen and that. So, but it is one of the things we all hope that everybody has learned from it, and panic might not be the best way of attacking or reacting to these things. So.
So a lot of younger couples that we've had on here said that, well, some of them, I think most of them, if not all, have said it was a good thing because they were able to spend time together.
Or
And-
even just get together with last episode's couple.
Yeah. Yeah, like it kind of reinforced their relationships. But these are younger couples. Do you think that maybe you didn't really notice that effect because you've been married for so much longer?
I don't know. You were actually, I think for you, you were busier because you had meetings now. Because between work, I mean, this affected all your other things that you were involved with. You could not go there, so you had to do
Do it at
home,
Yeah.
like meetings and Zoom meetings and all of that. Now, the office had become at home for some of those things.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it really affect. I think we were. Maybe it's because we are been married for so long.
Well, our children weren't at home anymore,
No.
so it didn't really change much for us.
No,
I see.
No.
we had done the empty nest syndrome already. So
You couldn't go out to eat. I mean, in restaurants and that as easy, or so we probably stayed home more.
probably stayed home more. Yeah.
But
I've never heard this term, empty nest syndrome. Do you want to expand on that?
that means when all your children are gone, moved out.
Yeah, I think I know what they're talking about. If I just want to see if I'm understanding what you're meaning. When you have kids, your lives become so focused on your kids and your kids' activities, and once they're gone, almost the reason, not that it was initially your reason for living, but it almost did become, for that time when your kids were there, they were almost your reason. And then when everything stops, you're like, you've just spent so much time focusing on all your kids' activities.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, for us, more empty nest is more like, I mean, obviously, when the kids are growing up, it's more, you're focused a lot on the children.
Right.
You do a lot of stuff. But for us, empty nest is more that the children have all
Moved out.
and everything else kind of you had to adjust. So like when you're used to having everybody home for supper, now it's just, you cook less when you, those kind of things.
Well, that and your day isn't, or evenings and stuff isn't focused on their after school activities, or
Yeah.
we got to get ready for their plays or grads or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's they kind of have moved into their own
Yeah.
life. So
And for us, then obviously, you have more time to spend just with each other, which is great. But it's also, we have different, you start doing some of your old hobbies again.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the mindset that has got you, to the 40-year mark in your marriage, and what kind of mindset you will have going forward in your marriage.
well, to make it work, you have to go into marriage with the understanding that it's two of you, and neither is going
Perfect.
to be perfect, but not all. You have to make decisions collaboratively. And there's things that might bother you, discuss it, but don't always point it out. And it basically is, we from ourselves, we would say that having Christ in the center of your marriage is what gets you through the things, and it also directs your heart to be forgiving, and that you don't become tone deaf to each other. That you realize the needs that each other has in certain areas, without there being that you have to wait and it doesn't happen. But communication is the big thing, and respect,
Yeah. Love.
and trusting that God will guide you,
Yeah.
because there will be things that will challenge you in your life as a married couple, and you can see just looking around that some of those things in some of the marriages have created dissension and broken up the marriages, because it starts to come to the point where they blame each other, and you have to be forgiving. And that's not about self, it's about two of you.
Yeah. And I think when we were engaged and decided to get married, we chose to be married. We wanted to be married. And anything that we knew that there obviously obstacles would come up, there'd be arguments that would come up. You work through them. You did not matter. We just faced it head on and moved on.
Yeah, you can't do it alone. You have to do it together, and you have to look at us being not perfect. Nobody's perfect, and that's why I say you have to be very forgiving and work together towards the next day.
I've noticed that you guys have talked a lot about faith, in that being a core part in your relationship. How important is it for couples to have matching, like this similar or the same faith system, or even like common goals? Or do you think it would be possible for, I don't know, just throwing a random one out there, a Buddhist to be married to a Catholic? Do you think they would be able to make something like that work? Or
I think as humans, we can all make something work if the desire is from both ends. But being humans, we are still in a sinful nature here on earth. And when there's challenging times, or when there's something that kind of starts, like sprouting, when there's an issue that starts sprouting between the two, and we all look back at when we grow up. There is always things in your younger years that will come to the forefront, especially once you have children as a couple.
Yeah.
And that's when the trying times will come. And that's where there's a lot of times, what you just mentioned, they start going what they were used to, or what they see as being
How
for
they
their
were
children.
raised, yeah.
And then it becomes a very difficult marriage.
I feel too that if you have the same beliefs, it makes your marriage a lot easier.
Right.
What about opinions on things, like more minor things like preferences about neatness or cleanliness, or something maybe more significant like political sides?
That can also become, something that you will have disagreements on or even arguments, but you can't be that you can just use, you have to discuss why and see the point of each other.
And you still might not agree after
might not
that.
agree.
Like you agree to disagree sometimes on certain issues, but you,
But the things that are core to your situation, you need to find where you both are going to meet and go with that, because your children are watching you.
yeah.
And you want to be able to explain to them why. I mean, and that's the part of the problem we see in the world today is everybody is trying to like basically trying to force their opinion on everybody else.
I can definitely see how that would be a conflict.
Division?
Division's a better word. Yeah, division.
Yeah, but you also have to, like I'm a big one, you choose, you want to, if you disagree, you still, I mean, if you have your own ideas or whatever, but you respect that person and you don't make that a big issue, like,
Yeah.
depending what it is, I guess.
Depending what it is, but yeah, I mean, if you put water on and you keep raising the temperature on it, sooner or later it's going to boil.
It's going to boil, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So that's why you got to keep it and discuss it and find compromise.
Yeah,
So communication is very important.
communication is key.
Yeah.
You've heard that a lot.
Yeah. Communication has definitely been the reoccurring theme that couples have brought up, which I find is definitely
It makes sense.
100%.
Because if something's like something like one partner, the thing that my wife does, it grinds my gears sometimes, and you never discuss it. It can kind of fester.
Yep.
And don't talk about them behind their back. If you have something, you talk to him or her about it. Like don't talk smack, like don't talk smack about them.
Right.
I don't know how else to put that. No, you say something. Like if you have something, you tell them.
Yep. Don't go to the coffee shop and complain there.
Exactly.
Darn.
Yeah,
much for
there
that.
goes that.
Man. There goes my coping there. There goes my coping ideas. Oh, well. At this point, we'd like to share with you guys some statistics that we found regarding divorce and separation and ask you to respond to them. We're going to go through each one individually, except for the last two. We find those ones are fairly connected. So we'll start off with people who have been divorced in the past and get remarried are more likely to get divorced again. The percentage goes from 40 to 50% in the first marriage and goes up to 60% in the second marriage. So
Through one thing, and you have some guidelines on how it went and everything. It becomes easier to do it again when something gets a little tougher.
Resilience to fight for a marriage, I guess, depending on what the situation is, but the resilience, like to fight for it, becomes easier second time around to bow out.
Yeah, it almost as you could almost say that it becomes part of almost like a habit. Because if you've done it once, that wasn't. I know what's going to happen if we do, and I don't know where. Like this is where it's going, so I might as well get out of it right now. And it becomes easier.
I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
Almost exact wording.
Yeah.
And that's usually, I mean, again, it's self. It's about yourself instead of what you promised when you married that person. So yeah, and that's the thing. You got to battle through it. The first time is where I think you gain a lot more doing that and sticking together, because the grass ain't greener on the other side. So
You know?
If you're discontent with one thing, you can just as easily become discontent with the next.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. And I can imagine, and well, this is something that a lot of other couples have talked about, but you would feel quite lonely after being married and then getting divorced or being on your own again. A lot of people just can't put up with that loneliness.
No, they look for another because, and sometimes, I mean, then your choices are narrowed down. There's not as much choice either. So, and you end up sometimes getting together, and might be things in the history that you don't know about until,
Yeah.
because there's usually children involved, and you're starting to put families together, and
Yeah.
Right.
Adds extra stress.
Yeah. We also found it kind of interesting in our research that the number of divorces in past years, fairly recent, the amount, the raw amount of divorces per year was in a slight decline. So 2016 and 2017, 62,000 divorces. 2018, 61,000. 2019, 57,000. And then in 2020, the year the pandemic hit, there was an extreme low of 43,000 and a huge spike back up to over 71,000 in 2021. Thoughts on this? Or do you think that maybe the reason there were less divorces in 2020 was because of the restrictions, or was it an emotional thing where people wanted to make it work, or was it maybe both?
some of it would have been. I mean, so many people got laid off. You wouldn't have had that opportunity economically to move out or go do something. So you probably did make it work. Put up with a lot of things maybe that you didn't like, or that were bugged you about the other partner. But obviously in 2021, where that spike is, after most of them, maybe both of them, had been at home together for 8 months or a year now, all of a sudden that got to the point where now I can't
Handle it. no more.
handle it, and that's why it just rose dramatically. Or maybe opportunities somewhere else. You had to find a job, or that you had to move, or things just didn't work. But that's what it kind of from the numbers looks like to me. When there's tough times, you will try and stick it out if you don't see an avenue of escape somewhere that's easy. But as soon as that avenue becomes, then all of a sudden people start to bolt. So
And who knows, maybe they were together during this scare, and so they chose to lean on each other. But after a while, it just, the old habits were
too
still
much
there.
time together.
much time
Weren't used to
together.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And the kids being at home,
that will
because
have been.
trying to have schooling online, they were home all the time. All those things can put a lot of pressure on a marriage.
Yeah.
Would you say it's important to make a conscious effort to keep the relationship interesting by going out and doing things together?
I don't know if going out to do things,
Or
but
do
even
you
just to do things together.
To do
is
things
good.
together.
Yeah.
You just
Continue to date your spouse.
Yeah.
Even if that means just
Going for a quad
Going for a
ride
quad-
or
yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
But not that when you do things on your own too much, that's doesn't build the relationship.
Yes. Yeah.
Already, most people, if they're both working, you're already separated during the day, 8-9 hours a day. So time that you have to do things together is only in the evenings or weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you say that the more time you can spend together, the better? Or is it also good to kind of have some things going on your own that you can talk about?
It needs to be proportionate.
I think so too. I think it is important to be together, but I think it's also important to to do your own things. Otherwise, I sometimes feel like you just become too dependent on each other. You have no other circle besides just the two of you. Like,
Yeah, you still need other people in your
yes,
life,
yeah,
100%.
yeah,
whether that be church, family, community, whatever, grandkids in minor hockey or, things like that. They're in kids clubs and
it's
doing
important
things. We drive them there sometimes, stuff like that.
yeah. It's important to have your lives together, but I think it's also important that you two have a life. Like that doesn't mean to say that you don't love each other less. You're not going to spend 24/7 together.
Right.
Yeah.
You still kind of should be the person that your partner married, right?
Yes, exactly.
Being your own person.
Yeah.
In that last bit, you talked a lot about having community, whether that's church, family, or even just your town. How important is it for couples, would you say, to be active in the community?
Good question.
Thank you.
To be active in some organization, because that's where you learn where you're living, what happens. You support each other when things, somebody's hurting or something happens to a family, whether that be a death or an accident or ill health. Because I think as we're designed as humans to interact, and that builds us up and keeps us going. Because if you're living in, somewhere isolated and you don't have that outside interaction, you become very self-centered, and we need to worry about helping others, because that's, I think, of what we are kind of developed in.
Yeah.
That's
Well, you should have an invested interest in your community, because then you know what's going on. You get to know the people.
Yep.
You can help people. Like, I mean, there's so many things you can do. To just stay at home and sit behind your four walls is not going to help anybody, whether it's you or your community or anything, your church, whatever.
Love your neighbor as yourself. So
Yes.
always care about the person next to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you both seem to love helping other people, or the idea of contributing. Is that something that you valued about each other before you got married?
Don't know if we did.
I don't know. I was very young.
I was probably the person that would be at the back row. I didn't want no attention. But as you are kind of not forced into it, but as things come your way and you accept it and you get used to it, it can become more comfortable and
enjoyable.
but also you're blessed by it when you help somebody, and it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Right. So, because everybody has something come their way that is a struggle, and that will happen to everybody. And we had our turns at it a couple of times, and it's when they're thinking of us, that gives you that extra.
You know that you're part of a community then.
Yeah.
Or church, or
Almost 80% of all divorced people end up getting remarried, and about 6% of that 80% end up getting remarried to the same partner that they had left before. What are your thoughts on that?
I guess my question would be, so the ones that 6% that got remarried, were they married to another one in between? That's not an answer here, but was it that possibility that they were married to somebody else, then realized, it wasn't what I expected, and decided to go back to the original way of life? I don't know. That's one of the questions, but I can see 80% of them wanting to get remarried. Like I was mentioned before, you're lonely. You when you're single, you don't associate with other couples the same way. You know, and that we hear from people that
Even
become widowed.
yes.
Because then they stay home more. They're
Yeah.
not, oh,
They're not part of
I
a
won't
group.
fit in, or
Yeah.
I won't.
They're the
They-
third wheel.
Yeah, they won't talk to me as easy, and that's probably a big thing behind people wanting to get remarried is to have that relationship,
Yeah.
and also feel part of some other entity, you know, like community or family, or you know, if that's also that there's a reason for because of children. I don't know if that would be, you know, have an extra parent to take care of, raise the children, depending on who has custody of them, I guess. But sometimes what you don't know what you have until you lose it,
Yeah.
and then you look back and might have, you know, have regrets or whatever. But that's what I would kind of think would be behind the 6%.
Yeah, that makes sense. I could definitely see where.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know how to finish that sentence, but
that makes sense.
yeah, just makes sense.
We also found if the couple has children or a shared business, there was a much higher chance of reconciliation or attempting to reconcile.
Totally, because the children are your center. And so when you are having to be with that other spouse all the time, you have no choice but to deal with them or talk to them. So I can see how that
Yeah, and a shared business would be, you know, well, you're used to, if it's shared, obviously you're both having some input, whether it is of time dedicated to it or financial, and that would kind of, you know, force you to reevaluate that, and because if it does, you know, it brings you back together, because you do have a history of you know what it has been like, because your reconciliation, and hopefully that reconciliation is before actual divorce, that they can, you know, just kind of go and say, let's just take a look and see how we can put this, you know, back on the right rails. So
And maybe they remember the person or see the person again. They remember why they fell in love with them to start off with.
because everybody, I would say, got married because they loved the other person, but what happened after that is what we need to question.
Are you trying to think of something?
I had a weird question to ask. I'm gonna ask it, and I'm probably gonna end up just editing it out because maybe it's a weird question. If you had to compare your marriage to some sort of object or mechanism or piece of machinery or government operation or something, what would you compare it to?
You cannot compare it to that because that's an animate object. A marriage is human relationship,
Yeah.
totally different in my view.
You wouldn't even make an analogy.
No.
No, it's just something about it. When you love someone or when you get married or you are married, it's just, I don't know. It's just like you're
There's
my right hand arm.
yeah, there's a flow and ebb to it, and
Yeah.
and it's always moving. It's growing or suffering, or like it's not. There's feelings and everything involved. It's not a animate.
No,
where
it's-
it's stationary or something that. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't think that was a stupid question.
There we go. That was a good answer, though.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have tried to come up with something like, "Oh, she's gear 7 to my gear 6 in the clock," or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
like it's
whatever.
just, there is no way to describe it. You just know.
So we're gonna squeeze these two statistics into one conversation piece. So violence and abuse account for 34% of all divorces in all age groups, and extramarital affairs accounts for 27% of all divorces in all age groups. What's your response to these?
Well, the violence and abuse, I would separate a little bit from the other one.
Yeah.
We are all humans, we all have emotions, and it is how we are able to control those emotions. And as I mentioned before, you need to discuss the thing that is causing you to have an inner feeling that you want is bothering you, let's say. And that way you can kind of discuss it before you get to that, because as soon as somebody says one accusation and then all of a sudden another accusation, and it just builds from there. But the other thing with violence and abuse as well is that it can happen even when you are in your right state of mind, right? But many times I think there is other things involved in the life that will make that worse, and that can be any addiction, when or things that you as a self for yourself do, and that grates on the other partner, and at some point it will come to not an explosion, but it will start that moment,
Start the process. Yeah.
of, and that's where violence and abuse, because we all have a breaking point, and some come to that point earlier and some a lot later, but it needs to be diffused before you get to any even point of close to that. And I think taking all those other things out of the way and saying, no, we're together, we have to look at this picture as two of us, and not, well, I'm going to go out and do this and this, and then, because when you're with friends and you don't have a core hard, that you can get swayed and end up being led into some other areas where then when you do come home, you might not be accepted as easy as if you decided to go out together and do stuff together.
No, I agree. I think, and sometimes if there is something and you know about it, talk about it. There's that big communication thing again,
Yeah.
and you can maybe
Like I said,
work through it.
Don't go somewhere and then complain to the others,
Exactly.
and then come home and extramarital affairs. That's like I say, that's probably a little separate from the other one, because that is where some emotion or things in your marriage are causing you to
Look
elsewhere.
Or you're not being fulfilled, or
Yeah. Or there can also be others that are kind of dragging you, or not dragging you, but trying to cause you to look elsewhere, be distracted, and that is something we all need to be very careful of. And I think that's why we said that faith is one of the things that you have committed yourself to each other, and when those temptations can only be diverted or warded off through what Jesus does for us.
yeah, like you when you have those thoughts, or when you want to, you just don't give in to that.
Yeah.
Like,
Don't give it a chance.
Exactly.
And I think that's one of the hardest things, I think, on our teens in this day and age, is what is out there, and a chance just once, or all of a sudden you have no control anymore. So.
What kind of advice would you or have you given to your kids about marriage?
Find the one you love, respect, make sure that, I don't know,
Work on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because marriage is not always, I mean, like, you have two totally strangers coming together when you're married. And so you need to work on it together. I respect each other, like that's.
Yeah, never yell at each other.
No, yelling doesn't help anything.
Discuss things and respect each other's decisions. You might not agree totally, but you both know what each other thinks of it, and try to accept and live with it.
Yeah.
As long as it is what we are asked to do through our faith.
And we've told the kids, have a date night.
Yep, date nights are good.
Date nights are good.
We have the grandchildren overnight, like you mentioned
Yep.
before, sometimes, and let them go and have supper or whatever, movie or.
Yeah, whatever. It's important to reconnect when you aren't so busy.
Yeah, that's something my folks are doing quite often, even if it's just going and shopping for a day, just having that time together to keep the marriage strong.
Yeah, it's important to have that time together. That's why you got married.
And discuss monetary, because there's so many families that don't discuss money, because that can be one of the things that can cause big troubles.
And then there are families that do discuss it, and it ends up turning into an argument most of the time.
You need to. That's why communication. Have both know
You both are
your
adults
priorities
here.
and where your money, where you want to spend it on. So you kind of have an idea, and impulse buying sometimes can cause big trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And don't hide the credit card.
Yeah, don't hide the credit card.
What credit card?
Yeah.
Because the statement always comes in the mail.
Yeah.
So just make sure you're the one checking the mail, right? Is that what we're trying to say?
Takeaway?
Yeah, that's what I took away.
Check the mail.
On that note, I gotta go.
Well, anything you guys would like to add? Any other thoughts?
Marriage is good.
Marriage is good. I'd marry him all over again. Yeah, with everything that's there.
Yeah. Through the ups and downs, there's nothing that we can look back on, and we made our decisions always together. And
They're like little stepping stones in life. If you miss the rock, you just get yourself back up and continue. It is. That is one of the things that I think when you look at some of the older couples, since I work in long-term care home and assisted living, the couples that you can see that really love each other right to the end, and what they will do to try and assist the other spouse through to the journey home. That is real love. And too many, I think, in this day and age, look and say, "Oh, this is I want out, easy way out." That doesn't build that togetherness, and at the end where you can say that it was well done. So there's many there that spend and wheel their spouse around that can't walk anymore, or needs help, and that is a blessing that I must say that I get, is to see how when you age, there's still a lot of things that come before you that are very difficult for you, but the bond is there, and that doesn't disappear. The love stays there.
All right.
Well,
Well,
I'm just thankful that you guys were willing to invite us into your home and have this conversation with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
yeah, thanks for joining
Thank
us.
you.
No problem.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you guys for myself. And I don't know, he already knows you somehow. I'm still not sure how.
No, it was good.
Yeah, we probably did almost an hour. Right?
You did an hour.
Yeah,
That's what they all say. They all say 10 minutes.
10, 15
no,
minutes.
it's good.
Don't
It's
have much
good.
to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have much to say at all. It's been an hour. But it's good. Honestly, I love it. It's so much fun hearing different couples' perspectives, and you guys are the oldest couple we've talked to, and
Oh, really?
yeah, and I appreciate the wisdom that you guys brought with you into this.
They say that once you get white hair, that means wisdom, not old age.
Old age. We got old age, but I don't know.
Every white hair adds 10 IQ points.
Dude, I used to have a gray patch. I used to be smart.
Just the name thing kind of starts disappearing. You can't remember names.
I already have that. It's okay then. I'm good.